Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching. So we have Paul McAuliffe TD with us today. Paul is a TD for Dublin Northwest and he is also the former Lord Mayor of Dublin. So thank you very much, Paul, for being with us today.
No, thank you. We seem to all be carrying out our business by Zoom lately. I was just thinking when all this is over, I imagine we're going to be doing a lot more of this sort of teleconferencing that we probably would have been familiar or even maybe used to dealing with. So it's great. It's great to take part. And I think what you are doing is really good because I think there's lots of people, not just members of Ógra, who are looking for this sort of content that helps, I suppose, replace some of the social contact that they would have had. So it's really important. So thanks a million for doing that too.
Thank you very much for being here. So I suppose just to dive right on into it. So obviously you're heavily involved in politics, and I suppose we're just wondering why did you become involved in politics in the first place? And I suppose what's your earliest political memory?
I suppose the sort of falls into two lots. I was involved in a local youth club called the No Name Club, and we had a graduation ceremony. The No Name Club is a national body right across the country which gives young people alternatives to drugs and alcohol for that really critical period between, let's say, 14, 15, 16, when they're just sort of getting to know themselves and how they socialise. And the No Name Club gave an alternative. Wasn't in a dogmatic way, just that it was about providing kids, whether it was a disco, whether it was a setting for young people. In many ways, it predated youth work, which I'm really passionate about. And so I remember our first graduation ceremony that we organised. I was a youth leader, and two of our local politicians showed up, and it actually meant a lot to us. Like, it really did. There was a bit of controversy because one of the elected reps turned up from Sinn Féin, and at the time Sinn Féin, I suppose, would have felt like they were very outcast, that they were being excluded, and we hadn't actually invited him. He just had passed by, and the reason we hadn't invited him was actually because he was a councillor, nothing to do with Sinn Féin. But it was an interesting insight as to how different people come to an event or an organisation or their politics with different perspectives.
Yeah. And I suppose at that time, Paul, would you have had an interest that you may have gone into politics afterwards, or had you any idea at that time that that was kind of the direction that you were going to take?
I suppose I always had an interest in politics. My grandfather was a Republican. He didn't side with De Valera or Fianna Fáil, and he continued on with the IRA. And he subsequently went on and became involved with Clan na Publicta and was Noel Brown's Director of Elections. So he would have always talked about politics to me growing up, but I would always still say that I wasn't in a political family, because certainly among everybody else in our family, politics just wasn't really sort of spoke about. So I always had an interest from him. We got on really well, and whether it was communist Russia or what had happened during World War II or here in Ireland, I really enjoyed those conversations with my granddad. And I suppose that's probably, between that and my history teacher in secondary school, Mr. Gassells, he gave me a real love for Irish history. And I think between the two of them, they gave me that link. And when I came into the No Name Club, I suppose I came up front with the reality of politics is that it's not really about all of those bigger picture things. It often comes down to something very practical, like we didn't have a location where we could meet as a youth group, and we were fighting very hard for a youth centre. So I suppose I came at it like many people do, with the appreciation of history and politics, but it was really about my community that moved me to get involved.
Yeah, so on the note of, I suppose, your community innovating you to get involved, I suppose what is the most enjoyable thing that you get out of being a public representative, and what do you enjoy the most about your job?
It has to be the people. I think if you're in this business and you didn't get on with people or you didn't like people, you'd be in the wrong business. Although you'd be amazed the amount of people who are quite shy or who find that social interaction hard that are successful in politics. But that's really what drives it for me. I remember we got a grant for an old folk centre very, very early on. They had lost their insurance for their bus, and we got them a grant where I think it was €2,000, and they bought a widescreen television, and they were able to watch their movies that they would have gone to the cinema on the television. And I remember thinking, God, such a small thing, and it made such a big impact. And I think being that person that people can go to and trust, and at the same time maybe lead people in a certain direction as well on an issue, I enjoy that part of the role a lot.
And I suppose in your term as Lord Mayor of Dublin, I suppose you would have had a lot of standout moments. I suppose, what is the most standout moment for you as your term of Dublin Lord Mayor?
You know, I don't think I've really categorized or appreciated the year, and it wasn't a full year, it was just 9 months. Really, in many ways, my first day in the Dáil was very difficult because I could see all the people around with the TDs, new TDs, with their families, all really, really excited. In many ways, I was walking away from probably the greatest role that I'll ever serve in, and that's as Lord Mayor of your city. And actually, Bertie Ahern said that to me very early on in the term, that it was the best job he ever had in his political career. So it's hard to point to one sort of outstanding moment.
Yeah.
There were some great opportunities. Being able to represent the city at the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Berlin Wall, meeting with Angela Merkel, discussing Brexit with her, meeting with Sadiq Khan, with leaders right across, mayors across Europe. They were great opportunities. But actually, the things that you'll remember, it goes back to those simple things. It's the people. And there's one standout memory that I think will always stick with me. There was a councillor from another party, and he asked me would I drop into the Shelbourne Hotel because there was a lady there who had got some bad health news, and she was having afternoon tea with her 2 daughters. And so I dropped in. It was very early on in the term, so I was still a bit nervous going in, you know, because you have the chain on and you feel a bit self-conscious. And we went in, and we just had a lovely cup of tea with them. But in the course of the conversation, they said, "Oh, we were down in the Dublin docks yesterday, and the Italian tall ship, the Vespucci, was there, and my father was a docker, and we sort of blagged our way on, and we were having the crack with all the Italian sailors and everything." And it was really such a coincidence, because the day before, the captain of the ship had visited the Mansion House, because you're also Admiral of Dublin Port, and so you receive any diplomatic ships that come in, and they present the crest of the ship to the Lord Mayor. And so I just gave the office a quick text, and I said, "Can you bring the crest around to me?" And I gave that lady the copy of the crest as a sort of momentum of their time on the ship. And I remember thinking at the time, afterwards, like, they were so delighted. And that lady, unfortunately, has since passed away. But I've no doubt that crest is sitting on someone's mantelpiece, and they'll always remember the time that they spent the afternoon with the Lord Mayor. And I imagine they won't remember the name of the person. But that's when I realised the power of the office, that you can be so generous with people, and all you had to do was give them your time.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fantastic story, and I could definitely see why that would stand out. And I suppose on the other end of the spectrum, I know in politics you have those great rewarding moments, but there's also those difficult times. And I suppose I'm just wondering what advice you would give someone thinking of starting out in politics.
Losing is horrible. Losing an election is really, really, really hard. It's really exposing. It's like going for a job interview, and every single person that in the area you live with are on the interview panel. I remember taking down my posters after 2016, and even the people who were wishing me well, I resented, you know, because they were asking me about the election and commiserating and so on. And it's a very raw experience. And I say that because anybody that's going to put themselves forward, this isn't an academic exercise. This takes huge personal toll on you, on your time, on your family. And, you know, you go into it with your eyes open. And as you say, there are great, great moments. But it is a huge commitment. And I would just say, be careful. You know, be careful with yourself, your own mental health, because that's something really important. You're also dealing with lots and lots of really vulnerable people, and that can be sort of taxing on your own mental health too. So look after yourself. And the other thing is, go into politics from the grassroots up. And as an Ógra rep, I'm sure you'll probably resent me saying it, but I always say to people, if you really want to be an elected representative in your area, be involved in your GA club as much as you're involved in Ógra. Be involved in your youth club as much as you're involved at Fianna Fáil or Deshna. And that's, I think, what is the great strength of Fianna Fáil, is that we've always had, we're not doing this for the party. Micheál says it himself. We use Fianna Fáil to serve our community because we believe it's the best vehicle that for the country and for our community. But Fianna Fáil isn't the end in itself. It's actually about the people we represent.
Yeah. And I suppose you mentioned there that life in politics does have a huge toll on your life and totally your family and your friends. I suppose, how did you find the life of a public representative affecting your social life? I mean, did you have a lot of time to yourself throughout the years?
Yeah, look, I think it's about making time, and you do have to do that in any job. The other thing is, you get to meet so many great people, and age just isn't a barrier. Like, we have a Zoom call this evening for a couple of people who are involved just to discuss some of the stuff that's been happening this week with government information and all of that. And there are people on that call from 70 down to 17. And age is a great leveler. And I think politics actually opens up your opportunity, and it makes sure that you're connected. You're not living in your little bubbles. You know, there's a lot of people who invite people over to their house on a Friday night for dinner, or go to a pub on a Saturday night with people that are like them.
Yeah.
And the great thing about politics, both with your constituents and with the people involved in the party, is you meet so many different people. And I think that's really great. That's one of the great things about politics, is actually it improves your social life. Now, you have to make time for the people you grew up with and the people you know. And I imagine if they see this, they're going to tell me I don't. And it's hard. But I think politics actually gives you more opportunities to meet more and different types of people.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be the case. And I suppose when you do have that downtime and your time to yourself, I suppose, what are your interests and hobbies? What do you like to do just to relax?
I'll be honest, there sometimes isn't much of it. But we have two kids, Millie and Hugh, and they're just deadly. So as much time as you get spare, you try and spend with them.
Right.
I did a really bad job of assembling a seesaw and swings yesterday to try and entertain them, and they're giving out to me that the bolts are starting to come apart. So yeah, I suppose the kids take up a good chunk of the time. But I suppose in terms of outside of politics, I suppose cycling is something I've really got into over the last couple of months, and I'm hoping now with the lockdown starting to lift, we can do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can completely understand how you'd love to spend your time with your children, and I suppose it's the perfect opportunity for it. And
I think actually, I think actually a lot of parents are under a lot of stress, because if like in our house, both of us are working during the day, so the kids are there, and you sort of do feel a bit of guilty you're not spending enough time with them. And normally they'd be in school with their friends, or they'd be in creche, and they have lots of stimulation and so on. So I'd say there's a lot of parents who actually are looking at it, looking forward to getting back to normal, because it allows them separate those two things and be a bit more productive at work, and also be a bit more giving of your time when you actually have the time with the kids.
Yeah. And just going back to so I suppose during election time and canvassing. Now, I know we all have our own stories about canvassing, some of them good, some of them bad, but I'm just wondering a standout funny canvassing moment that you might have had over the years that you might like to share with us.
Well, it sort of combines the two topics. I've seen during the COVID-19, you saw Prince Charles and Leo Varadkar, they're both caught in awkward moments where they half shook hands with somebody and then they stopped. And during an election, like literally, it's just shake hands central. Like all you're doing is shaking hands. I remember one night after the canvass, I came into the house, into the kitchen, and I said, "How you doing, Ciara?" to my wife, and I put out my hand to shake hands with her. And she looked at me as if to say, "For God's sake."
Instinct.
Yeah, you're on total autopilot. Actually, I often find news stories might break during an election. You know, outside of politics, there might be a particularly gruesome murder, or it might be some very big issue like that isn't maybe central to the campaign, or it might be developments of a court case, and they may happen during an election. And it was 3 or 4 months later, I remember saying to one of my friends, God, I don't remember that. And they were like, oh yeah, that was in February. And you literally, you're outside a bubble, you know? So that can be hard, because often the first time you hear the news on a canvas is from the person at the door, because you're out knocking on the doors.
Yeah, absolutely. People appreciate how much time canvassing takes up, but I don't think people maybe realize just how intense it can be sometimes.
Yeah, I suppose you gain so much from it. Like after an election, I made a submission there to the parliamentary party yesterday about some of our ideas to kind of shape what will be a principles document and try and bring it into a program for government. And, you know, I didn't have to think too hard about what I wanted to include in it, although we did a consult with some of the canvassing team as well, because when you knock on thousands of doors, you know what the issues are.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of it. I think it's really important. You know, it can be tiring. You'll have there's 1 or 2 members of my canvassing team that got the head taken off them after a bad door. Of course, instead of taking it out on the voter, you might take it out on the person helping you. But that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose just to finish up, Paul, we just have a few rapid fire questions, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So these questions.
Do I need a buzzer?
Pardon?
Do I need a buzzer?
Just first thing that comes to your head. So these aren't politically related whatsoever. Now, so first question: Barry's or Lions tea?
Oh, absolutely Lions.
Lions. You're very sure on that?
Absolutely.
And your favourite place in Ireland outside of Dublin?
Oh, outside of Dublin. Well, there's nowhere better than Dublin, first of all. But I'm contractually obliged. I'm contractually obliged to say that. We have family. We're from Lixna, and I always love going back down to Kerry. I don't do it enough, and we're hoping maybe this summer with the restrictions and that we'll get a chance to go down.
Yeah. And what's your best or worst joke?
Best or worst joke?
Your favourite joke?
God. You see, any good politician that knows good jokes knows they can't tell them in public. So the really good ones, I'm afraid they're going to have to stay locked away in my head.
Now, what else do we have? Describe your life so far using 3 film titles.
Oh, wow. 3 film titles. Film titles.
Or just one. Whatever springs to mind.
I always think that life in politics is like that Katie Melua song, The Closest Thing to Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that I don't know that you can use the song, but I often describe it. There's no, unless you're in politics, you don't realize it.
Oh, we can definitely take that answer. And finally, a politician from another party you admire.
Well, I got in trouble with this actually during the week because obviously we were asked to pick 4. And people went for really safe options. I mentioned Gareth Fitzgerald in it, and loads of people were giving out hell to me. But actually, I admire anybody in politics, and particularly in other parties, that want to make a change. And so anybody that sort of is ambitious about being different and making a change, they are people that I admire. So yeah, I certainly think Lemass is one of those. I think he's always embraced change, and again, as I say, Gareth Fitzgerald. But I think you don't have to be some sort of standout statesman. Sometimes the most difficult decisions that you make are actually the ones that are hardest to make, but they might be just small things. Yeah. I'd like to say John Hume, but I think we have a great partnership with the SDLP at the moment, so I'm counting John Hume as one of our own.
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul, for taking part, and thank you for the rapid fire questions. So thank you to everyone else who's after tuning in, and I hope everyone's keeping safe and keeping well in these times, and hopefully we'll get back to normality soon. Again, Paul, thank you very much for being here with us today.
No, keep up the good work, guys, and hopefully we'll see each other at a physical event at some point in the future.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.
See you now. Bye-bye.